This is the introductory YouTube for strings, which are going to be in this next chapter that we get into this next week. So what I've done over here in editor is I've defined three functions which will serve to clarify some of the characteristics that strings have. So this first one here has no parameters, but internal to the function I define three strings, and you can see what they are here. Incidentally, you can put more than one statement on a line in Python. Just need a semicolon in between them. So I'm defining four strings, as you see, and then I'm checking their Boolean equality. And so I go through and I check whether S1 is equal to itself and print out the answer, and whether S1 has Boolean equality with S2, and S1 with S3, S2 with S3, and S3 with S4. So let's go ahead and run that. This first function, in other words. And so here's the output, and you can see that S1 is equal to itself, so that should make some sense to you. But that S1 is not equal in a Boolean sense to S2. And if you look at S1 and S2, the only difference is that S1 has a space and S2 doesn't. And so the moral there is space is a character and spaces matter. So these two strings are unequal because this one has a space here and this one does not. S1 equals S3 is comparing these two, and so these are identical except for this is uppercase and this is lowercase, and so that means they are not equal. S2 equals S3, so now I'm comparing this one and that one, and those are clearly going to be false. And S3 and S4, okay, so these two, S3 and S4, two strings are identical, except for they contain the same characters, but they are in a different order. And so you can see this is CSC, this is CCS. Same space in both and same 110 on both ends. And so the moral there is that for a string, order matters. And that's going to be true in general for sequences, and the two big examples in this class of sequences are strings and lists, which we will talk about next, and which you have already met. So let's run the second function here, str2, and this one I'll run, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the built-in function len, and I have I've defined three strings here, the same first three strings as I defined in str1 underbar 1, and what I do is I look at the length of L1. I compute the length of S1 and S2 and S3. If you take the len of a string, you get the number of characters in it. So for example, this first print statement will print out the length of S1 equals len of S1, 7. And so if you look at S1, you'll see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters, including, of course, the space. Then I print out the length of S2 using the same structure. Length of S2 is 1 less because than 7 because it does not contain a space, and the length of S3 is the same because it does not contain it does contain the space the same as S1. So S1 and S3 have the same length. Then the next three statements are Boolean statements, where I say in the first print statement S1 is longer than S2. Okay, so that would be true if len of S1 was bigger than len of S2. Well, that's a true statement. 7 is bigger than 6. S1 is at least as long as S2. Well, the Boolean statement of that would be len of S1 is bigger than or equal to S2. That is true. And the last one is S1 is longer than S3. Well, that's clearly false because len of S1 is 7 and len of S3 is 7, and so 7 is not bigger than 7. Okay, for this last one, this last function here, let's go ahead and run it, and then I'll discuss it. So what we're doing here, I'm going to reconfigure the window a little bit here. So what we're doing here is we are traversing the strings, and so I'm defining 3 strings, the same that we used before, and then I'm traversing each string. This is something that you've seen before with lists. And so what I do is I print out, first of all, an introduction for each traversal. So before traversing S1, I print out characters in S1, and remember what this end equals open quote space close quotes does is it keeps the print on the same line. You can see it right here. Puts the colon at the end, and then in the prints in the for loop, what we do, this is where the for loop traverses the S1 sequence, and it will print out sequentially each character in S1. And so if you look at S1, that's going to be capital C, capital S, capital C, space 1, 1, 0, and you can see that coming out here, capital C, capital S, capital C, space 1, 1, 0. And with the end equals dash, 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 I've put dashes in between the characters, so you can see that. The last print that I have, notice the indentation here. Even with this for loop, the traversal for loop, makes any subsequent print statement start at a new line. So so that clears the formatting, if you will, for the traversal of S2, where I do the same thing now, and note the comparison between printing out S2, traversing S2 and S1. There is a space in S1. There is no space in S2. There's nothing here where my cursor is. And then lastly, I traverse S3. S1 and S3 are identical, except that S1 has uppercase CSC and S3 has lowercase CSC. Okay, so we're now going to do a similar thing with lists, and you'll see some commonality between strings and lists. They are both sequences, and so that means you can traverse them element by element. Order matters, that kind of thing.